Hey everybody, welcome back to Church Talk, where we talk about everything involving the local church. My name is Rob, and today we're going to be talking about Hey, thanks guys for joining us. I have a special guest with me today, Jacob Hunt. Tell us a little about your channel, your worship drumming channel on YouTube.
Yeah, so I cover worship songs on my YouTube channel, JDH Drumming. I've been doing that for a couple years now. It kind of seemed like that's what people were doing, but more so like I just wanted to put kind of like training resources out there almost to like help people learn how to play a song, because that's what I use. So like anytime we would do a new song, I would type it on YouTube, like drum cover, and it's different to just listen to the song, but when you can like see someone playing it,
Right.
like, oh, that's what he's doing on the bridge or the ride or the snare or how it's building, it's like it made it much more easier to learn.
Right.
So like once you do a song over and over again, you kind of learn it. But anytime we would do a new song, I would look it up. I'm like, man, these videos are so helpful.
Right.
Maybe I could help someone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I just
that's
kind of
cool.
started doing it. I mean, it genuinely isn't for like views or like, oh, look at me playing. I mean, like,
Right.
it started with me. I used it because it helped me.
Right.
So I wanted to do it to help others.
Cool.
Now, obviously, I care about the quality and the sound and things, but
Right.
I had to do some research because you have to get the audio from your in-ears on the video and not just the raw drums.
Right.
Because you wouldn't hear anything but raw
Right.
drums, and that sounds terrible. So I kind of did some like GoPro researches, and it's like a mic adapter that goes from the GoPro into a splitter into the Aviom. So your in-ear goes in one side of the splitter, the mic adapter goes into the other.
Okay.
And so now it's going to pick up anything in the Aviom. So now you can get the guitar, the piano player, the singer, the talkback mic. And so you just record it and you go, and hopefully you don't mess up.
So what they hear online is exactly what you're hearing.
Exactly what we're hearing live. Yeah.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Cool. Guys, Jacob, he's the one who I've given some shout outs to him on the channel before, and you'll see some clips and some things on some other videos. And he's the guy that I'm referring to because, we've played together quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I like to, number one, you have a channel, so I like to support that channel.
Appreciate that.
But number two, it's like, I know you.
Yeah.
So the things that I post, it's firsthand experience that, I know your level of commitment and your level of skill as well. And so I don't want to just throw some drummer out there that I don't know.
For sure.
And
I think it's funny because like I'll watch your videos and like I'll see you like shout me out, and I'm like, he didn't even ask me, but that's cool. It's funny. It's like he trusts that like we have a relationship where he can just do that, and like I'm not gonna feel weird about it. So no, I love it. I mean, I love the church talk stuff. It's just like we need more people passionate about talking about like church topics, and like we can talk worship, click tracks, like that's fun, debatable topics, but like I have more fun talking about church talk topics. I mean, it's just kind of our lives,
Yeah, and where both of us are in the worship ministry, it's kind of natural that we'll speak more towards the worship and sometimes more of the tech. Because I'm finding that like even with our videos, when I talk about something that's general to the church, there's not as many people that get engaged with it as when I'm talking about a way that we have done something tech-wise within our worship ministry. It's like that seems like that's where more people get involved, and they're like wanting to maybe they're just wanting to know, how that worked for us, because that seems like the best videos, at least the most watched videos anyway. Not
whether
the best
people
videos,
like it or not. Tech is a part of the church in 2024. I mean, live stream, COVID, and it's just like, wasn't that fancy back in the day, and there's equipment and lights and this. I'm like, that stuff is important, you know? I mean, I look at other churches, I'm like, wow, their tech or their social media is really good.
Right.
And if that's what draws people in nowadays, then that's what draws people in nowadays.
Yeah.
And you can use it for good. And it matters. I mean, quality attracts quality. James says it all the time, and I totally buy into that.
Yeah, I think all that's important. I mean, I used to be of the mindset like, what does it really matter?
Yeah.
You know, especially when it comes to the worship side of things, because I'm like, people are listening just to listen to good quality, and they're not really worshiping with you. But the word is like, it's getting down in them.
Yeah.
So I'm like, don't worry about the worship, just do the word. But then later on, I find out that there are people that are stuck in their homes, they can't leave, or they're in the hospital, or they want to be there in person but can't be, and they're actually joining with their church family in worship. So why not give them the greatest quality that we can?
Yeah.
You know, so my mind has changed a little bit on that.
Yeah.
So
it's a different era.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it is.
You don't want to be a spot where you're like, oof, I don't want to go watch the live stream.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. And do I
sound that bad?
It's unfortunate that most churches in our area, I'm just going to say most churches, period, their live streams don't sound that great.
No, 100%.
Because they don't represent what you hear in-house. And that's just because either lack of personnel, lack of people that
I think that's number one
that they need, because they need a separate person to run the online and not just mirror it. Because that's what we're doing at our church now is we're mirroring what we have in house, because there's not a dedicated person to run that. And I think that's probably where most churches are at.
There's like a volunteer. It's like, oh, I'll do it for you. And there's like someone who actually like really likes it and enjoys and is skilled in that area.
Right.
And I think most churches lack the personnel. They have like volunteers, which is great, a great heart. I'll run the lyrics, I'll run the lights, but they're only doing what they can do.
Right.
You know? So
right.
I'd say it's personnel for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it takes more. Then it takes two of those same people to separate it out and do one in house and one for online. Because man, it's like, you listen to churches online and they're so rough. It's like, why would, especially if you're going to a concert the night before or whatever, or you're watching YouTube of professional videos and it's made for YouTube or made for a video, and then you switch over to your church and the quality is just so much different.
It is.
It's like, why
and
would...
Unfortunately, that's what's going to attract a younger generation.
Right.
I mean... if I moved somewhere, I'm 30. If I moved to another city and I had to find a church, what am I going to do? I'm going to go online.
Right.
And maybe listen to a couple. And, your flesh, your gut reaction's like, oh, I'm going to go try this one because, like, they sound good.
Right.
And maybe you get there and it's like, ooh, this is not the right choice. But that social media live stream presence is like the first introduction. It's like a first impression.
Right.
So I feel like it's important to nail that first impression to get them, to the church. And then obviously the message and the worship and the culture and the fellowship can take over from there.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Because that's so true. I mean, if like when we were looking for churches a while back, and when we walked, we kind of stepped away from ministry for a little while. I don't say ministry. We stepped away from worship pastoring several years back. But kind of fortunately for us, it was right when COVID hit. Yeah. So there wasn't any churches open, so it forced us to take a few weeks off. And because we would have went right to actually where you're at, because we just kind of felt like that's where we're supposed to go. But so for us, we were able to join you guys online, and at that point, I know you guys have got a new board since, and you've had some audio issues and things like that happen here in the past, in the recent past. But at that point, when that old system was working really well, yours online sounded really good. Of course, there wasn't. I know at that point he wasn't mixing for in-house. Yeah, he was specifically mixing for online, and I think that even after that mix for online stayed present, because for a long time it sounded really good until we started having those issues with the sound, and then it's like, what do you do? I mean, you kind of have to cater to the in-house crowd because they're there, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but we're talking about click tracks and things of that nature. From your perspective as a drummer using them, tell me what are some of the advantages and the disadvantages of just a click? Not so much the backing, but just on the click track. Like,
yeah, I mean, I'd say one of the advantages is it just kind of locks the band in. You know, I mean, on a worship team, you could have a pretty large band. You could have a drummer, bass, 2 guitars, piano, 4 singers, right? So there's a lot going on stage. So the click just locks everybody in, honestly. The guide, so to speak, you know, which is the Phantom Man saying bridge and things like that. To be honest, I don't need it. You know, it's like it's not something I need, but like that doesn't mean the team doesn't need it in a sense.
right.
So I'd say the advantage is it locks everyone. It locks everyone in as a band and in the direction that we're going. Right. It's like this is the song we're gonna play, and within the boundaries of that song, this is the arrangement, right?
Right.
I don't think there's a ton of disadvantages just because if you look at it this way, like if you're gonna plan to do a song, I don't know, just give me a random song, Lion of the Lamb or whatever, it's the first one that comes to my head. If you're gonna plan to do Lion of the Lamb, you're gonna do Lion of the Lamb, and then afterwards, I feel like the really good flow moments are in those like transition moments, which I think a drummer and worship leader relationship is super key there. Because as a drummer, I mean, we can really control the dynamics of those moments.
Right.
And so like we can end a song and, you know, if the worship leader wants to go into, you know, Nothing But the Blood or something like a hymn like that, those are those really sweet flow moments where sometimes I could sit back and say, like, I don't feel the need to build it up here. I like kind of where we're at. Or if I feel that leading to, we're going to build this up, we're going to take off, I can do that. And at that point, the click's gone. The click track's gone. So, I mean, I guess the disadvantage is, like, you can't flow, like, in the middle of a song, obviously. But once that click track goes off, if you have that good worship leader connection with the drummer, and even as a band, like playing with Michael and Judah and all these people over time, I know what he's going to do.
Right.
I know what he's going to do, and they know what I'm going to do, and it's just like we don't need the click track to worship in a sense. So it may come off like I'm really not like a super click track guy. I came into it using click tracks. Like before I ever played drums at Kings River, 2012 was when I started playing drums at church, and David Rosenblum, who I had mentioned, kind of shepherded me into that position. And I came to a practice and sat and watched, and he was like, all right, you know, come up and play the song with us. And it was Your Love Never Fails by Jesus Culture. Very challenging song on the click track when you are starting off. That song feels faster than what it really is. So I got in there and I played with the click, and I'm like, man, this is really challenging.
Wow.
So I just kind of spent that summer going to the church and playing with the click track in my ears, and now it's just such a thing. I just don't even pay attention to it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not distracting. And honestly, I could just, because the click and the guide talking are 2 separate channels. To be honest, I could mute the guide. I don't need the guide.
Right.
Like, and I think that goes into a whole preparation thing. Like,
Right.
I came up with a leader who was really passionate about being prepared and like as excellent as you can be. So that's just in me.
Right.
So like if we're going to do a new song, I'm not going to listen to it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. I'm hammering that song through the week.
Yeah.
So much to where I could sing the song.
Right.
I don't need the lyrics.
Right.
So it's like I don't need the guide to tell me turn around or bridge, instrumental. I just know it because I've like studied the song. And I think that that's the most important thing with click track is if you study the song and really know that song like the back of your hand, you don't need the click track.
Right.
But again, that doesn't mean that the other team members don't need it or a vocal person doesn't need it. So yeah, I mean, click track's a hot topic, but I would say too, the only reason I really like tracks is because if you don't have that live instrument, I'm like, man. So we don't have a guitar player at church. So it's like, we're going to do this song. And man, it's got that really good lead line on guitar, you know, and it's like, it's a preference thing. Trust me.
Yeah.
So it's a conviction I'm working through, but it's like, I just really want that sound, you know, because I have my preference of how it is. So it's like, if I had a guitar player, I wouldn't use it.
Right.
And so it's a battle to figure out, like, just, you know, how to get away from your preference. And like, okay, if you don't have a guitar player or you don't have a strong this or that, can you arrange it in your own way and make it sound how you want to sound without those things? And I think that's something I'm gonna be growing into.
Yeah,
trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that and not to sound like, you know, not like rude towards anybody or anything like that, but if your skill level is like, if you don't have time to practice and your skill level just isn't quite there that you can make something your own, then I'm not saying that's the way it is at Kings River, because I know your old skill level, it's very high. But I think a guide could really be a great tool at that point, because it keeps people, it kind of gives them that verbal or that audio roadmap during the song, to where I'm like you, and most of the time I never do the same thing on a song. I'm like, I change it up all the time. Yeah. Just because the way that I lead is more geared towards like, what do I feel like the Lord is wanting to hear right now? And so there's some songs it's like, it doesn't matter if I'm using a clicker guide or not, because it's exactly the same until, like you said, at the end we may flow in a different direction. But then there are those songs that's like, we might do the chorus first and then the verse and then the second verse. And then we're supposed to do the chorus, but we're not. We're going to go ahead and do the third verse and put all the verses together and then end up going big on the chorus. And so we just rearrange the entire song. But the next time we do it, it might be a little different. We might do the first verse, then the chorus, and then the second two verses, or however. So with us, I'm not saying my level was higher than anybody else's or whatever, but like for me, it seems like the guide would be a lot more work for me to have to incorporate that and change it, rather than just saying like, oh, this is that song, it's set, that's the way we are always going to do it. Because I've spoke with a few people before, and they create their own guides every week.
I was going to say, you can be fancy with it where it's like, you know, we don't use Ableton, but Ableton's kind of like the premier tracking thing, and you can go in it and you can make it have the chorus first or throw all the verses together. But to your point, like, if that's more of a spontaneous flow for you, that's not something you're going to decide on a Tuesday ahead of time, because that's not spontaneous flow in the moment. And I remember like the first time like I started playing with you, you know, you would send us a set list and I'd be like, hey man, what version or arrangement of the song are we going to do? And you're like, just make it your own. I'm like, sure. And it was like, but I get it, you know, I got it. I mean, I've been playing since 2012. I've been to places with click tracks. I've been to places with not click tracks. I've been in situations where technology failed and you lose the click track, and it's like, you gotta keep going. Right. You know, it's like you can't use it as a crutch. Right. But yeah, it's just like, so I loved playing with you guys, because it's just like, because there's a song, you know, we'll do a song, there's 7 arrangements by different bands, and it's like, well, which one are we gonna do? Because like, I respect kind of the mentorship I had where it's like excellence in preparation, but it could almost be a negative thing for me, because I get so one-tracked on like, okay, this is how it's going to sound, this is how it should sound, this is how I'm going to play it, and if someone doesn't play it that way, it will like irk me a little bit, and that's like a self-growing thing. So playing with you all, playing at Kings River, getting like the best of both worlds has helped a lot to just kind of like be in the middle ground a little bit. I'm not like super anti-click track, but I'm not like super pro click track. I do have the preference of, I wish we had that instrument. It's like, you know, there's Michael and I have joked before, there's like a song where there's like a dulcimer on the track. And
Yeah.
I'm like, is that necessary?
Right.
We don't have a live dulcimer player.
Right.
But like strings is a great example. Some songs are like a lot of Bethel songs have like strings. I love the sound of strings, and it's like, I get it. We don't have that on stage, but it fills the void. Like if you have a smaller band, like I feel like we'll have a drummer, a bass player, and a guitarist, or a drummer, a bass player, and a piano player. That's all we kind of have. That's 3 instruments. So for me, it's kind of like a comfort thing too. It's like if we muted everything and just did us, it would feel so quiet.
Yeah.
I almost feel like I'm on an island because the drums are such a heavy noise.
Right.
And the bass sits under it and there's no guitar driving it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I'm like in the zone, I'm like, I feel awkward. I'm like the only one playing.
Yeah.
So it's like that strings or that little extra acoustic in the track help feel like there's other people playing with me. So
Right. I was listening to I can't remember who it was now. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the video and link them in here or something. But I think it was maybe Worship Artistry. I recently started watching their podcast, and they said exactly what I was thinking about tracks, because I'm not against a click track at all. I don't like it because it gives me a headache. It's just too much. I can have the drums in my head all day long, but there's something different. That click is like it's so sharp that I just.
I'm going to change the tone of it somehow.
Exactly. I need to do something different. But I can see where they're definitely useful, and so I'm not against the click. Now, a guide, that's a personal preference of mine. I'm not a fan of it. But they were talking about all the backing tracks, to where if we overuse them, and in some instances, like you said, I think it's great. It fills in that place where you don't have it. But on the flip side of that, like say, for instance, an acoustic guitar, where I play acoustic, and if I go into a church and I'm an acoustic guitar player and everything sounds perfect because it's all tracked out, and I hear the acoustic guitar, I'm like, I'm not needed. Yep. So there is that negative side of that too. It's like, well, if you have someone in the church that plays that part, but they're not that good because they're not at that skill level.
Right.
And our skill level that we're presenting to the body is the recording artist's level. And the guy sitting out there is like, I can't play that good. I can't play that part.
Yeah.
I can do this, and I can play chords, and I can do some of those riffs, but I can't play to that level. And so and what they were saying, like, that's so true, is it can discourage that person.
Yeah.
So if there's not that good relationship, is like, and they even said this, they're like, the worship pastor will say, hey, we need a guitarist.
Yeah.
If anybody plays guitar, and like the people they hear what sounds really good, but then they hear that over top of you, the worship leader, saying, we want you to be on our team. We're only using this because we need somebody. But what they hear is like, yeah, but you guys sound so good, I'm just going to mess you up. Yeah. So I think there's that give and take there too, to where it's like, should we at times go ahead and show, hey, this is who we are with no help with the backing track. Mm-hmm. And we just bring it down to what's really simple of what we have. And then maybe the next time bring it back up to our full production of everything. Mm-hmm. And in those times, like, hey, this is us, and if you play an instrument, come join us and see if you're a good fit, and just kind of jam around a little bit, and because there's a danger too of opening it up to say, hey, come be with us, and then you have someone that's not a good fit for the team that you just
You said something that's actually really good. I think for me too, it's like, can you learn to play with what you have?
Yeah.
But I say is a huge weakness for me. Learn to play with what you have. And that's good. I mean, that's a good rebuttal for click track. As for like a guitar player sitting in the crowd, like you said, I would just make it not so much. I agree with like, he would feel like his skill is not on the track, but as far as like, oh, they don't need me because they have guitar, I would 100% make a video like, hey,
right.
We're looking for an acoustic. You are needed, I promise.
Right.
And we actually do something which is great for that, as far as like, if they would feel like they're not as perfect, which I always make a joke. when we lost our guitar player, I'll be like, "Hey, man, our new guitar player is great. He never messes up. He's perfect. He hits every line.
Yeah.
No complaints. He's great. It's because it's the track." But so we do a worship development program. I'd like to talk about. So when I moved,
talk about that.
When I moved to Lexington, they were big in like the Church of the Highlands culture. They got a lot of their resources from that, and they called it the Academy. And so when I moved down there, I had a good relationship with the worship leader, and he kind of started giving me some leadership roles and stuff like that. I've been on a long journey. I've had a lot of people say, like, you're more than just a drummer, you know? And I'm like, what does that mean? And I've had, like, different worship leaders in my life kind of give me different roles. And so he was a big instrument in helping me understand what that means a little bit. So he had me lead the academy. So basically it was a clear-cut path to, like, join the worship team, as opposed to, like, you're talking to someone in the meet and greet, and they're like, I play guitar, and then you just throw them up there. That's a dangerous game.
Yeah.
Especially it's like, oh, I can sing. Sure, come on up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't sing. But so we did the academy. So, like, in Lexington, there was such a bigger pool of musicians and stuff like that. So, like, in one class in the academy, we would have someone trying for guitar, a drummer, a piano, and maybe a singer. And what was cool is our team was so big there, our lead electric would coach the electric. I would coach the drummer, our piano player would coach the piano player, and then, like, our worship leader would coach the vocalists, which is super cool. So, like, they'll run a song, and then we'll have a coaching moment, and then we'll run it again and run another song. So we did that a little bit, and, you know, the team grew a lot there, and I liked it. And so when I came back to West Virginia, you know, James and I was just talking about the future and growing the team and what that looks like, and I brought up, like, so we call it the development. And so myself and Amber currently are over the development. So again, you kind of make a video and you put it out there. Hey, we're looking to grow the team. If you want to sing or play guitar or piano and, like, you have a heart for worship, you join the development. And since we started the development, we're up to, like, 13 vocalists now.
Awesome.
Yeah, we've added a bass player, and it's like you're at the point now when you're on planning center, you're like, man, you're having a scheduling problem because there's too many singers, but that's a great problem to have, as opposed to not having enough. And you'll have a singer come in, and it's like, man, they got it. They're just really not confident or something. Right. And so the development gives them a couple weeks to gain some confidence, and then, like, I've seen this one girl just take off. You know, it's so cool. And I'm like, I don't know how I feel about name dropping. It's like, I don't know if they'll get mad or not.
Yeah.
But it's like Michaela, right? She's like a 15 or 16-year-old girl in our youth group, and James told me she was going to come through the development. I'm like, cool. And she came so shy, so reserved. But, like, she started singing. I'm like, there is something there, man. She's got a good tone. She's got a good voice. And she was super shy. And, like, fast forward to now, and she's, like, ad-libbing during an instrumental. I'm like, who are you?
Yeah, that's
like,
awesome.
That's fancy right there.
That's awesome.
And we've had several people come through that's shown. I mean, we had a girl get so nervous at development she'll run off stage.
Oh, wow.
And now she's singing on Sunday mornings without an issue. So it's really cool to see that. Of course, we're looking for, like, your vocal talent, obviously.
Right.
But there's so many things we're looking for, too. I mean, like, did you truly develop from, like, day one to the last day? And obviously we use click tracks, so we need to see if they can follow a click track. Right. So as an instrumentalist person who would sit in the crowd and think maybe I'm not good enough, something like the development would be great for them to come in to see if they can play along with that, because I'm not going to sit there and look for, are they nailing this lead line perfectly? Right. Can they stay with the tempo, you know, hit the chord changes and stuff like that? I would just ask for that. I just want the live instruments for sure. Yeah. But yeah, development's been sweet. Team's grown a lot of vocalists. If there's any musicians out there at Kings River, we need more of those. A lot of vocalists have come through. I feel like they're easier to find, vocalists, you know. Everybody wants to sing. But finding that piano player or electric guitar player is much harder. But they'll come. You know, I mean, the Lord will send them our way. And
you said a moment ago, you kind of hit the nail on the head there, was the pool of people that in a larger area
Yeah.
is so much larger.
Big city.
So it's you can get a lot bigger team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say a lot better team because there are some really good teams in some very small churches, but the pool to draw from is so much larger that our teams can just become better teams in those larger areas. So
small town West Virginia is tough.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because in Lexington, you have the University of Kentucky right there. You have college campuses. We really just have Marshall, and that's in Huntington. I mean, that's almost an hour away.
Right.
And so it's just, I've always wondered, like, how do churches just, like, how do they get musicians, man? It's just tough.
Yeah. As I'm doing more YouTube research, I've done a video a while back and like, should church musicians be paid? And that's a controversy. And there's
I don't think it's controversy.
people
They
that
don't need to be paid.
that they're like, yes, they're supposed, and then there's other people like, no, they shouldn't be. And so I'm like, I can see both sides of it, but I'm not like a stern like, yes, they should be.
Yeah.
But if you want them to be full time, if you want them to do more than just play an instrument, because I get it, there's practice involved. But if you want to pay somebody to practice is a personal thing.
Yeah.
Is my perspective. But if you want to pay people to rehearse and to be spot on, and I mean I get it, but then at that time what does it do for the ministry side of things? Like where's my heart? Am I doing it for a paycheck, or am I doing it to please the Lord?
Yeah.
And so I can see both sides of that argument, but I think to answer your question, some of the larger churches, there's more of a draw because they can do some recordings, they can do some videos, and a lot of I don't want to say just the younger generation, but a lot of that talent will go towards that direction because it not only gives them an outlet, but it gives them something bigger to be a part of. So it's like it's an easy draw, to where the standard size church in America is 65 people. So
that's insane.
It is
small.
So the church of 65 is like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Because we don't have the budget of the 300 person church down the road, which is still not a big church.
No, not at all.
But according to the average, it's 3 times as big. I'm like, that's crazy.
That's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on the side of not paying them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're like a mega church and you have the money and you want to pay them, I'm not going to deny your paycheck. That's
right.
great. But it's like, to me, personal opinion, that's just the difference in like like you're a volunteer and like, that's just what you do, man.
Right.
Like I'm not just like a volunteer. Like, yeah, sure, I'll help out. I'll play the drums. Like, I want to play.
Right.
It's my calling. You know what I mean?
And that's your worship to the Lord as
well.
well.
Yeah, it's like
there's times. I know we had one of our videos a while back. Andrew was talking about playing guitar, and he's like, "That's my worship to the Lord. It's what I can present to the Lord."
Yep.
So I want to do this. I don't expect anything out of it. To where, I'm the same way. Like when we started going to Kings River and I wasn't leading, I felt empty in my worship because I wasn't presenting to the Lord the talent that He gave to me. So I couldn't give back to Him. I felt that way. I can't say that that's the way it really was, but that's the way that I felt.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then once we were there for a little while, and we took a season off, which was great. James was like, "Hey, I don't expect you guys to do anything, just because it was really cool." James, he the first time we were there, he was like, "Dude, you guys don't have to come early. It's like when church starts, just like show up then, and then leave when it's done, and don't do all the stuff that you normally do. Just come to church and enjoy." I'm like, so that was cool. That was nice to be able to do that. But even in that, I'm like, I still felt like I wasn't giving the Lord what
you just itching to get up there.
Yeah.
I'm behind the scenes. I'm like, wait, the entire family plays instruments? Oh, let's get them up there, man. Your break's over. Let's go.
Yeah.
But I respect the break. But back to the pay thing, like for example, like when I moved away from Lexington, I still had relationships down there. So like if they would have a worship night and they want me to come play drums, like they will like give me money for gas, and it's just like I don't need it, but that's nice of you. You know, like
Right.
they want to honor me in that way, but it's like I don't need the gas, man. It's 2.5 hours. Like that
Right.
goes back to like I want to drive down there and I want to play.
Right.
It's like I'm not a musician who plays at church.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm a worship musician.
Right.
You know, to go crazy back to the preparation thing. Like when I'm in the car, like my radio is on 24/7. I do not drive in silence. I am constantly listening to worship music.
Yeah.
Like here and there, I'll listen to like a John Mayer or something like that, or like some music I grew up on. But like I'm mostly just listening to worship music, and I'm like, if you're gonna be in the realm of like a worship musician or worship leader, you should be getting that stuff inside of you. You know, that literally just listening to worship music has helped me grow as a drummer. I don't even have a drum set, but just listening to worship music, because you kind of get the feel of what it sounds like, and it helps you flow. You hear other spontaneous moments. And I just think the biggest advice for someone who like wants to get into the worship is like, do you listen to worship music?
Right.
That's the number one thing. I mean, that's your biggest influence. I've kind of jumped around, but to end on the pay thing, a really good example, you know, I always want to go on tour, right? I feel like that's every musician's like bucket list thing.
Yeah.
And in Lexington, it kind of fell in my lap. Thank you, Lord. And I went on tour. It was like more of a Christian pop band, like definitely not my style. It was kind of like K-Love. No hate to K-Love, but it was K-Love style. It wasn't like worship. You know?
Right.
But I was like, hey, it's still going to be fun. It's still about Jesus.
Right. There's nothing wrong with that style of music.
Right.
So, yeah.
Not at all. So there was a headliner, a second person, and then we opened the show. And Ryan Stevenson is actually a K-Love artist.
Okay.
He was the second slot guy, and he's more of a solo guy. It's not like a band. And he didn't have a drummer, so he had asked me to play drums for him. And this is just like on the spot, like, oh, hey, I don't have a drummer. Will you play with me? I'm like, I don't listen to any of his music. I don't know any of his songs, but sure, like this would be great for me. And so it was like a 3-week tour, 13 shows, all the way to California and back. And at the end of the tour, Ryan Stevenson gave me a paycheck for $100. And it's just like,
wow.
And I'm not bashing it. It's just like, all right. But I didn't do it for the paycheck.
Right.
I would have went absolutely for free.
Yeah.
And the group that I was with was gracious enough to tell me, because I'm like young at this point. I got bills. I'm living on my own sketchy apartment in Lexington.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, man, we can't pay you. He told me up front, we can't pay you, but like I'll pay your bills while you're gone. I'm like, absolutely. Like there's just no hesitation.
Yeah.
And so you're not wrong if you like want to get paid, but I've never seen it that way. It's just something I want to do. So I don't expect money in exchange.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not like giving you a service. I'm giving you like my heart.
I think there's a difference too. If you're a musician who plays in church and a traveling musician, if you're in a band and you're leading worship in multiple different places, you have expenses, and because you're traveling, sometimes depending on the schedule, you may not be able to work a job because you're traveling the U.S. So I think at that point, the churches who are having those people out, they should pay them, because that's their livelihood, that's their job. But that's kind of because that's kind of like with us when we would travel just this area.
Yeah,
you know, we never asked for any payment because we were going there to lead worship, not to give a concert.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think concerts are fine. I'm not against them, but concerts are for the people.
Yeah,
you know, where worship is for the Lord. So we would go and we would travel the area and lead worship, and we would never say this is how much it cost us, because there was cost involved. But we would just be like, we wouldn't even mention money.
Yeah.
Some churches, they would give $100 because that's all they could give, and it'd cover our gas there, and that's about it. Then other churches are like, just $500 check. Then other churches would just, I appreciate you guys coming, thanks.
Yeah.
You know, and money was never involved. And it's okay either way. It's nice to get the check because it helps out in areas. But even when there's no money involved, it's like, it's okay. We didn't, like you said, we're not doing it for money. Because I realized on the front end that this is going to cost me to be able to do this, but the Lord always provides. So yeah.
It's just like if you enjoy it or not, because it's like, also don't just play the drums on Thursday, practice on Sunday morning. Like, again, we do the development.
Mm-hmm.
I help him with scheduling, worship nights, all these other things. It's like, it's just because I enjoy doing it, dude. You know,
Right.
It's like I play drums. I do this. I have a couple different roles. I just enjoy doing it. I could care less if you paid me or not. I don't want you. I just think as believers, you know, serving our local church is just super important.
To me, to talk about the pay thing with musicians is, I think if a church is going to pay the musician, then I think that musician probably needs to be a part of something else in the church, and let that role as a musician be wrapped up in something else that they're doing in the church, to where it's all encompassing, to where it's like, you know, you do the marketing, you do the, because I hate to say
like your own staff,
but yeah,
and
exactly.
you play drums.
Exactly. So I hate to use the term marketing for churches, but today, like you said earlier, if someone's going to be looking for a church, they go online.
Yeah.
And so if the graphics that you make and the pictures that you take and those things aren't a professional level, then that person who's looking for the church online will never come.
That's true.
Because they see the church as not up to par. Yeah. Even though you may be, but the person doing the graphics or whatever, that's not really cared about as much. And so the church is a great church, but because all that stuff isn't held up to a certain standard, it's like that guy, that family looking for it online is never going to find it.
Yep.
So that's, to me, that's like where the marketing comes from. It's not really that you're marketing, but you're marketing, if that makes any sense.
No. And then just to kind of switch topics, I mean, something else I've been battling with is like the quality versus like the heart, you know? Because like my gut reaction's like, oh man, I want like the best guitar player up there. I want the best piano player. I want the best singer up there. But it's like, you know, I go to Lexington, which is only 2.5 hours down the road. It's not like across the country.
Right.
But even the culture at the first church I went, so this is not the church where I did the academy. This was the first church I went there. It's like a mega church. And like, you know, I'm kind of like getting to know the worship team. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, I'm not like, you know, judging, even though I can't say people don't judge me. It's like, oh, we're supposed to judge you, Christian to Christian.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow, this is a big culture shock compared to like the worship team members I know at home, West Virginia, and this, you know, other church. I'm like, whoa, they're crazy talented.
Yeah.
But it's like their intent is a little maybe questionable, you know, just off their actions. I'm only going off of their actions and how they talk and stuff.
Right.
So that was kind of a big shock, but it's like you want both. You want the best of both, really good quality and a good heart. But I just think I'm constantly growing and trying to get out of my preferences of like, I'm going to go with the talent over the heart, because I don't think Jesus would necessarily do that. But I think they're important. I mean, because you could use the whole excuse of like, you don't want to be distracting on stage. Right. So it's like, if you're that bad of a singer or a musician where you're distracting someone, I can use the quality argument. Right. But if that person's just not very good, but man, they've got great stage presence, and you know them, and they're super walking with the Lord, that's a tough battle to be like.
I think that would be something like, because really worship is so much more than just the quality of their sound. Yep. But like you mentioned, stage presence, and sometimes people, when you say stage presence, people's like, they get they turn off right then. So like, you know, what you talk, but stage presence is important, because if you're a strong worship leader, but you're not a very strong singer, well, why not be open and honest about it and say, you know, you are a great worship leader. You worship and you lead people by your actions, but your vocal's not very strong. So we're going to bring you down a little bit in the mix.
Yeah.
You're still there, but you're going to be down because your ability is not quite there.
Yeah.
But you lead people in worship by how you worship. That's important. That's just as important as the person who sings really well, but then they just stand there and don't move and don't lead anybody in their actions. They only provide a good sounding voice.
They don't even got the side to side, man. At least get the side to side going.
Yeah,
you know?
And I know sometimes it's like you're nervous, so you're just standing still, but we got to break out of that and we got to lead the people in worship.
Yeah,
because just singing isn't worship. That's just a tool that we use, but
worship leading. You're leading the congregation. Right. So it's like, just because you're not leading a song doesn't mean that you can't be over on the side. Like, you're just in your zone worshiping. Right. And I love that. It just brings a different energy to the team when, like, they're just worshiping.
I call everybody on our team worship leaders.
Yeah.
I'm the worship pastor, but I'm not the worship leader.
Yeah, that's good terminology.
I pastor them, and they are all leading the congregation in worship. So I call all of them, even our guitarists, our drummers, they're worship leaders.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to go to that culture. It's like, no matter what you do on the platform, you're leading people, and so you're viewed as a leader. So when you go to Walmart, don't be talking angry and talking bad or whatever, because that points back to our team, our church, and ultimately back to the Lord. So if you're acting that way somewhere else, you're shining a bad light on everything that you're representing on a Sunday morning.
If you're on stage leading a church, you're held to a higher standard, and that's just my opinion. Right. And I think it's a true opinion.
Yeah.
You're held to a higher standard, man.
Yeah.
It's just like,
that's true.
Don't be out of the church acting a fool.
Right.
It's just like, because you always run into that one person where they know you're like, don't they sing at the church, or don't they do this? And now they're gonna have their own thoughts of like, oh man, they're just they're not believable.
Right. Right. And that goes back to what you were saying a moment ago. Like, you choose quality over like the lifestyle of the person. It's like, for like a youth group, I think it really doesn't matter so much, because you're kind of you're giving that maybe that guitarist who's not living right, but you're giving him an outlet and you're getting him involved with the group.
Yeah.
But on a Sunday morning for the church itself, it's like, I don't think that's a place to give just somebody an outlet to play because they're really good.
Yep.
But we're supposed to be carrying, and we're supposed to be like carrying the presence of the Lord. Yep. We're supposed to be ushering in the presence. And if somebody is on your platform that is not living right, I'm not saying people have to be perfect, but they need to be righteous before the Lord. And so if they are doing things that the Lord disapproves of, and they don't care about it, or it doesn't matter to them, they're going to live how they want to live, but they're super talented, they won't be anointed.
Yeah, I was about to say, I feel like the anointing wouldn't be there at that point.
And so I would rather have a mediocre singer who is anointed and who lives their life for the Lord and loves the Lord with all their heart and trying to live right, than the most talented singer ever that I have to keep telling them, like, hey, you got to watch your mouth. You can't be cussing in church.
Weird.
You can't be drinking in the bar on Saturday night and coming to church on Sunday morning, and you can't be sleeping with someone, and it's all these worldly things that, and a lot of churches, they don't care. They're looking for talent. And I think that goes back to our conversation before too, is like, are we I'm very careful about like who we put on the platform and who's on our team.
Yep.
I don't want somebody that, number one, you got to know the Lord, but number two is like, you got to be trying to live according to what the Lord wants us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't align with that, we're going to have a lot of struggles within the team. So we got to be walking together. And I think some churches, they don't care. They're wanting talent over.
I mean, really, that should be the most important question of a development, to be honest,
Right.
or a worship training program is
Mm-hmm.
number one question: how's your walk with Jesus?
Right.
You know, I
Right.
mean, and I think we definitely believe that, obviously, like Amber and I and
Mhm.
James and stuff, like for sure.
Right.
But like, has it kind of slipped that we forgot to even maybe ask that question, or like we just kind of assume?
Right.
I mean, they go to church here. I mean,
Right. And in our
course they're
culture
saved.
today, it's like, and no one wants to ask the question, like, do you know the Lord? Are you,
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you're here. And so, I don't know, it seems like sometimes within church is like when you start going to church, it's like you're just assumed that you're saved. And there's so many people sitting in churches that don't know the Lord. And, it's like the Left Behind movie or whatever, that what that come out like 99 or something like that.
There's just clothes laying around.
Yeah, they're
people are
just,
gone.
and the church is full of people, and there's clothes that's laying around, but then half the church is still there. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's so true.
Yeah.
That the going to church doesn't save you, but when you're saved, you'll go, and then like you said, leadership. Sometimes we just assume.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been there. It's like I can sit on your podcast and talk about things because I've just been there.
Right.
I've been on stage. I've drummed for so many years, and I've been in a funk, or my heart's not been right. You know, and it's like it's not something I'm intentionally doing. It's
Right.
I'm struggling with this or that,
Right.
and sometimes you got to have a rude awakening and kind of have your eyes up a little bit. But yeah, for sure. I mean, there's been stages in my life where it's like,
Right.
I want to do what's right, but I can't.
Yeah.
It's just like what Paul
Yeah.
said. And so having your heart right, it feels so much better,
Right.
worshiping, and it kind of locks so many things, and you can just flow better. And
Yeah.
I just feel like the anointing will be there. And I've played and led worship with someone close to me who might not have the best vocal. I mean, and they would say it, but they were legitimately anointed.
Right.
And I never once even thought about like, man, the vocals, because we just flowed, man.
Right.
And we had a relationship, and we knew each other's next step, and it was
Right.
truly anointed. And I agree. I would rather have that.
Yeah.
I'd have both for sure.
Right.
Obviously,
Right.
But,
And that's really where the development comes into, because the more a person practices, because I've been saying lately, practice doesn't make perfect; it makes permanent. And so if you're practicing correctly, then it's going to become second nature to do things correctly. And so that development, even if they're not quite there in their vote, if they can hear it, it's like, okay, there's potential. But if you can't hear it, it's like, I don't know how a person can be trained to sing if they can't hear it.
yeah,
But I know it's possible because I've seen it. So I don't know how they done it, but obviously that's not my strong suit to train somebody to sing when they can't hear. But that's one of those things too. Like you were saying a moment ago, there's times you just kind of be in a funk, and you're like, that it happens to everybody. You just kind of go lukewarm for a little while when you have that season of your life. And I don't think that, because someone's going through that, it's like, hey, you're off the team, you're not, I think that would be crazy, because you have that relationship, and that's the reason we have pastors.
yeah.
And people will say, worship pastor is not biblical. Well, it kind of is. When you put the term pastor in there, you're pastoring people. You're pastoring the people on the worship team. You're not really, I think you're assisting the pastor with doing the work of the church, but you're pastoring people. And I think that comes along with that responsibility of knowing, like, hey, Jacob's having a hard time with something right now, and we're going to come together, and we're going to talk through things, and we're going to have those difficult conversations, and then we're going to have those good conversations on the backside of things, to where we're going to walk through this together, and you're not being punished for going through something. you're still here, and we're talking through it and we're working through it, and that's what a worship pastor should be doing.
Yeah, I mean,
any pastor. Yeah.
No, I mean, and I think that's on a worship pastor is shepherding the relationships of the worship team, which is huge. Right. And it's like, you may come to a spot where you're like, man, maybe I just need a break. Maybe I need to not play for a couple of weeks. But then, like you said earlier, you do that, and then like you're not playing. You're like, this isn't helping.
Right.
Like, I need to have this. Like, I mean, I've definitely have fallen into this where it's like, you play so much every single week, and then you don't play, and you're like, what do I do with my hands?
Right.
You almost kind of lose that, like, worship atmosphere a little bit, which you don't want to get to that place, but you just get so used to like, this is my worship. When you're not doing it that way,
right?
You kind of struggle. But it's like, that's up for the that would be a tough decision for a worship pastor. It's like, am I gonna bench this person or not? Because like they just came to me with this struggle. It's like, do you bench them or not? And it's like, I just feel like that's gonna be based on their relationship,
right?
Like, and if the person can be self-aware to say, I may need to sit for a little bit.
Right.
But if the sitting ain't going to help it, because it's like you're disengaging yourself from like being a part of the worship. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it really could only help.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. But it's funny too, because years ago, a worship pastor friend of mine, I don't know if I think he's playing on a worship team now. I don't think he's pastoring right now. But he told me, he said, "Man, it's really hard not to lead." He's like, because I find myself, because he was running sound, they had some people come in, he's running sound at the church, and he's like, every time they would get to a certain point, I would find myself vocally singing like the next part of the song, like like a lot of times I'll sing the next part of the song or whatever, to just tell everybody where we're going, even though it's on the screen. But sometimes it may be different, or sometimes the screens may stick or whatever. So, I tend to lead with the thought of the screens aren't there. But he's like, it's really hard not to lead, because I'm singing the leader's lines and they're going to go somewhere else in the song. And I'm just singing out with everything I've got, and the next part, I'm like, oh, that's not right.
Wrong part.
And yeah. And I'm like, you know what? He's exactly right. Because I would do the same thing. I'll be standing in the back singing, and that's not where people are going. Or it's a different version, so the lyrics are changed, and I'm singing the lyrics that I know, because I'm
singing Rob Neal's version.
Exactly. So I'm singing my version of the song, and my eyes are closed. Because I lead like that as well. I lead with my eyes closed a lot. And open my eyes and look at the screens, and like, I'm singing the wrong words.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm not playing, I'm like locked in on the drummer. Like, what's he doing? I'm just like, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. It's hard when you worship for so long to not worship and like get back to that spot where you're just a worshiper on your own.
Right.
And not like, I'm just locked in on the drummer. Like, ooh, I would have done that differently.
It's hard to be on a rotation too, especially when you get used to like, you're the one playing every week, and then you get a bigger team come in. You're like sharing that position. It's hard, because then there's those vain imaginings that come in, like, am I being replaced?
Yeah.
Or do they think that he is better than me, or all these different things? And the answer to all of it is no. But those are things that we feel, and we maybe the worship leader or the worship pastor needs to be more needs to communicate better, of saying like, hey, we're adding to, we're not making a change, we're adding to the team. And I know for me, I'm like, I don't want a Sunday off, but there are people that's like, hey, I would love to have every other Sunday. I only want to do this once every other week. But I do it every week because that's all we have. And those people will be burnt out pretty quick, to where you got guys like us, it's like, I want to do this. I want to be there early. I don't mind to be the last person to leave.
Yep. I've had worship leaders been telling me since 2012, you need to take a break, man. You need this. I'm like, bro.
Like, why?
No, I don't. I don't want you to get burned out. Well, it's been 12 years. I'm not burned out. So,
yeah.
But I think it's important too, for me, it's like to not assume that everyone's gonna be that way.
Right.
You know, like not everyone's gonna have that insane,
Right.
obsessive passion
Right.
as you. Like they enjoy it, but
Right.
and I just think being a worship musician or singer in like the church, it's challenging just because it's more about your heart, you know, and it's like everything in the world tells you competition. Because out in the real music industry world, it's competition. Who's
Right.
better? Who's better is going to play.
Right.
It's not always like that in the church. So there's just so many avenues and opinions and
Right.
topics, and you just got to make the decision, you know,
Yeah.
with Jesus. And it's
Right.
like, obviously, you don't have to do that in the world
Right.
with the worldly stuff, but it's the same thing. Like, me and this guy, we both play drums, but it's like the rules and the decision-making process is totally different.
Right. Right. We have 2 drummers at church, and both of them are very good drummers. They have different styles.
Yeah.
But both of them are very, very good. And one of them, Caleb, he hates tracks. He's like, I don't ever want to play with a track. But then Arian, he's like, I kind of like a track.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're at the point we're not using any. I'm not opposed to it. We haven't implemented it yet, but that's something that I hope I relate it to both of them well. 'Cause of course Caleb, he's stepped back on Wednesdays because he's become the youth pastor.
Nice.
So
Sweet.
he's able to take that time and apply it into another ministry. But you know, it kind of worked out perfectly for us that having 2 drummers right now, we almost have like a Wednesday drummer, Sunday drummer, but I don't want it to be that way. You know what I mean? Because it seems like the Sunday drummer is your number 1, your Wednesday drummer is your number 2, which is not the case. Right.
Yeah, that doesn't exist.
And and we've been a part of teams before where they would say, we're going to have 2 teams, and they would label it A and B, not because the A was better or the B was worse, but in our mentality, that's what we feel. So
Absolutely.
if you're on the number 2 team or the B team, you feel like the second rate people. So then it's like, I'm not going to continue because I'm not as good.
Yeah.
And I think you guys are probably doing the same thing. It's like, what I want to do is just get one big team and have rotations in and out. And what I would love to do is like, hey, if you would say you guys would call us one day and like, you know what, we have 5 people out sick and 4 people on vacation and 2 people have to work and we don't have a drummer and we don't have a singer and all we have is a keyboard player and a bass player and that's it. And we have nobody to lead. I would love for us to be able to say, yeah, we've got people who are off
100%.
that we can
I'm
send
passionate
out
about this.
and help, because that's kingdom mentality.
Yeah.
And
Why is there this weird? It's like there is such a weird. Like I go to church here, and it's like weird to help them out or like go play drums at that church. Oh, are you leaving the church? It's like, dude, because like when y'all left and started your church, I'm like, I love it because like it's not weird with any of us, and I guarantee you, if we needed Andrew or something, you know, he would come, and it's just not weird.
Right.
I don't understand the weirdness in like churches helping each other out.
Right.
With stuff like that, because I definitely get that vibe for sure.
Right.
And it's just like if I was sick and James couldn't do it and Arian wasn't playing that week, he'll come to Kings River and play. It's not that big of a deal.
Right. Exactly. On the flip side of that, we have to be cautious on is like if something becomes like a regular, then there's like a pull on that person, like pulling them away from their home, where it's not like we're sending them out to help you on a service, but now it's like, okay, can you come do this like every Wednesday? Yeah. Because you're not playing on Wednesday. Can you? And so when it becomes something like that, now it's like, okay, now there's a pull, and I'm not like dedicated here.
Yeah.
And assist in other areas where
we should definitely have
needed.
A home base,
right?
For sure,
right.
I agree.
So I think even in that, we have to be cautious of how we go about that, and not send the same people out all the time. And we're not to the place yet where we can do that. Yeah. But that's definitely a vision of mine, is to be able to be like, hey, the church down the road, they need a leader, they need a guitarist, or
we need a guitar player,
whatever.
Send them
We
our
only
way.
have one.
Dang it.
We're not there yet.
No, but I mean, we were really only like that at base, like because it'd be like Judah, Fred, David, Judah, Fred, David, Judah, Fred, David, and that's how it would kind of be on Planning Center, and it works out. And I feel like you need at least 3 to do
Right.
that, because like if you only have 2 and then one's sick, then the guy's gonna end up playing 2 or 3 in a row. And you may have
Right.
the person who's like, I never want to be off. That's me.
Yeah.
But yeah, three musicians is great. You just get a rotation of 3, and if you have a relationship, obviously Judah's
Right.
your son, so
Yeah.
he can go play whatever he wants. But if Fred was ever off, and something like that, it's just not weird with us.
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah. And I think that's the way it should be with every church. Of course, you still have those denominational barriers too. That's like, we're both go to Full Gospel Church. I know you guys are part of Assemblies of God, where we're non-denominational, but the belief is the same.
Yeah.
So the organization really doesn't matter. But then you would have
Our worship sets are the same. Basically.
right, right. So then you would have like maybe someone in a Methodist church that their belief structure is a little different. Now, we agree on the things that really matter, but then there's some other things it's like we disagree on, or even say the Baptist and their style is different. So I recognize that if we're going to reach out to other churches and be a church that sends people out and helps, that there's going to be those barriers that we have. It's like, maybe one church wouldn't want somebody from our church to come because, hey, what if that leader starts to speak in tongues? We don't agree with that.
Yeah.
And like, well, okay, that's an understanding. So, but then again, it's like, if we're truly part of the kingdom, it's like, why do we have so many denominational barriers that would make us not walk together in life? It's like, yeah, we might not see eye to eye on this one thing, but it doesn't matter. Let's focus on the thing that we do agree on. We agree on Jesus. We agree on that he died for our sins. He rose from the dead. He ascended to heaven, and he's the door. He's the only way to heaven. And if we can agree on the foundational things, all those other things should just be. We can debate. We can talk. We can hash things out. But
It's like the term, like, is it a heaven or hell issue?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And so it's like, are they a brother? Are they a sister? And if the answer is yes, like, well, then we need to act like family and not like, you're my enemy because the name on your church door is different from mine. It's like that's so crazy thinking to me. It's like saying the right hand hates the left hand, and so we're never going to clap and make a joyful noise because this hand won't touch this hand. Like that's crazy thinking, and that's how we act sometimes in churches. I don't know why I went that direction with it, but
you're good. Where are you at with like? So do you choose your set list at your church?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I do as well with James. We kind of joke he has the veto card. If he's like, we're not going to do that, or he'll want to do a song that I don't have on there. Obviously, I respect that. But again, that's just him giving me some leadership roles and things I like to do. As a worship leader, picking a set list. I've always heard like the debates of songs where it's like, that's too wordy. And like, I've just never liked that term.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there with you on that like corporate level of like, it's too wordy, because you also hear on the other end of the spectrum, people are always like, worship isn't a spectator sport. Okay, so if worship isn't a spectator sport, why does it matter that it's wordy? If they're not supposed to just be singing karaoke on the screens and they should be worshiping, why does it matter if the song is too wordy?
Right.
Are you on the wordy side? Do you take that into consideration when you pick songs?
Not really. The way I choose our song, I have a database of what we know.
Yep.
And so when I go to choose a song, it's like, do we know it? First thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just looking through the song and I'm asking the Lord, I'm like, Lord, what do you want to hear? What do you want to use?
Yeah.
What are the songs that's on your heart today? And sometimes there's like a song that just, as I'm flipping through, it just jumps out to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I feel like that's one that the Lord wants to hear. And so if nothing else jumps out, I base the rest of the set off of that one. And for me, it's like, what's the message of that song, but also what key is it in? Because I like to stay in the same key through the set, so it's just easy to flow right out of one into the other without a key change.
Changing keys.
Sometimes it doesn't work. We have to change a key, and sometimes people say it's kind of boring in the same key. But if the dynamics of the song is different, then I don't think the boring factor is really there. But and I know some people they want to get with their pastor and see what the pastor's preaching, and then
like
build
a
the set
sermon
along
series,
with that.
like match it with the sermon series. Yeah.
And my perspective on that is different, because I'm like, the worship is not for the people, so I don't care about matching the pastor's sermon.
Not the entire set list.
Right.
Maybe like one song.
Right.
You know?
Right. But now if we're gonna minister to the people in song, then it's different. But if we're gonna minister to the Lord and it's for Him, then what's on His heart? What does He want to hear? And what I found a lot, especially lately, is the songs that we choose line up with what the speaker is going to be speaking about. And I'm like, I love that because it's like the Lord is working in both of us and we haven't spoken to each other. And it happens lately. It's happened a lot. Really? I mean, this past Wednesday was that way. And then last Sunday was that way. And it's like things just kind of orchestrated themselves out, but it's not just a coincidence. I mean, it is, but it's like you can tell that I'm not like bragging on myself, but you can tell that both the speaker and me were in prayer talking to the Lord, and the Lord orchestrated what's going to happen. And so I love that about I just love that about it, is that it's not so planned out that we I've heard this before, you can plan the Holy Spirit out of something, and I think there's truth in that, but I think also the Holy Spirit can be in your planning too.
Yes.
There is both.
I am very pro preparation,
yeah,
but I'm also totally cool with like if it changes in the moment.
Right.
You know.
Right. And so I'm all for prep as well. I think we need to be prepared, because if we're prepared, then that means we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're going in with a solid plan. But if that plan changes, we're good enough to flow because we're prepared. Because just like if we prepare a message, we're preparing a sermon, and we get up there and it's totally different because of the preparation we've had. The Lord has downloaded things to us. We've been one-on-one with the Lord, and though what I wrote on paper isn't what I'm going to deliver, the Holy Spirit, we're in tune with each other, that if I don't deliver what's on the paper and what's prepared, my heart's prepared.
Yeah.
So it's like even in that preparation, in that planning, if it doesn't go, like you said, if it goes a different direction, even though we didn't specifically prepare for that song, we're spiritually prepared. And I think that's where the anointing kind of kicks in. Like, it doesn't really matter at that moment. You've been with me. I'm going to empower you to do something that you haven't heard the song for a while, but I want you to sing it anyway, and I'm going to empower you to do it. And it's not weird, but it's something how the anointing kicks in, and you can do things that you don't normally do. It's like, I couldn't get this in practice. I've been practicing it.
Yeah.
But then in the moment, you're like, you have this confidence about you that you can do what it is that you haven't been able to do. So you're like, I'm going to try it. And then you do, and it's like, wow, that was easy.
Yeah.
And then you go back to it in practice. You're like, I can't do what I just done on stage. Why is that? The anointing gives us an empowerment. And I think, like you said, a lot of that comes from preparation.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many times where James, like, let's say we plan a 4-song set, we do song 1, 2, and 3, we're flowing after 3. He'll just cut the 4th song, we won't do it. and we'll go in a totally different direction.
Right.
Now, when I picked the fourth song, I'm like, oh, dang, it kind of sucks. But
Yeah.
that's something constantly growing and maturing in. But it ends up being great, and it's a relationship between the drummer and the worship leader.
Yeah.
I trust where he's going to go, and I'm going to follow him.
Right.
And the band's going to follow him. And it's just like, we prepare to do these 4 songs, but if the Holy Spirit's like, psych, you're not going to do that 4th one. Because I want to tag How Great Thou Art or something.
Right.
A simple hymn.
Right.
And we'll just build it up and see where it goes and not do the 4th song. And
and that's
totally okay.
That's where the worship pastor really comes in as well, as like, where are the people in the moment? Because when you're worship pastoring, it is about the Lord. It's about worshiping Him, but it is also about how do we need to get the people there?
Yeah.
And it's not really about ministering to the people. It's about ministering to the Lord. But sometimes there's ways you navigate the people to get to the point you need to get to. Do you want to go up over the mountain, or do you want to go through the valley, or do you want to walk on the water, or what's the direction you want to go, Lord, with this? How do we want to get your people to the place where you want them, and keeping their focus on you? So I think that's important too, is like, no, like, okay, right now the people need to go back to like an older hymn, and because they tend to sing with those. Well, right now they're watching us. It's more of I feel like we're performing right now, because they're not. I silence this, but
Told you, man, I can go.
huh?
I said, I told you, man, I can chat. I keep going, man.
No, we're good. but sometimes it's like, we've gotten into the performance element of things, and that's easily done. That is so easily done, and I think every musician and every worship team is guilty of that at times.
Well, on that real quick, I had a really close buddy of mine who's just not really, doing it much anymore, and he was telling me, he was like, all of us. How many times have we walked off stage and someone's like, "Oh, you sounded great."
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's all the time. And it's like, over time, can that get to you a little bit? You're like, we sounded good today.
Right.
I'm not in that stage of my walk anymore. I just take it as a compliment, because I don't care. It's not about that. But it is so hard to not get in that mindset. Oh, man, you sounded great today. Oh, you're so good on those drums. Oh, man, that was so killer. I mean, it happens all the time.
Right.
And it's just like...
And it's easy. It's very easy to allow that to get to your head, to where you're like, and then when they don't, you're like, oh, that didn't sound very good. And then you go away like missing the compliment.
Yeah.
And that's important too. That, I mean, I had one guy in the church. He's like, I'm not gonna compliment you anymore. I watched your video and you were talking about pride getting to you. He's like, I don't want you to get prideful, so I'm not gonna compliment you.
Yeah.
And of course he's joking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, that's cool that he's watching the channel.
Yeah.
But it's true that we can allow that, and that's what we look for, is that, instead of, because I tell our team all the time and people all the time, is like, our success isn't based upon the outcome, what we see. Our success is based upon, did we do what the Lord told us to do?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's like a song, whatever, like, did we do our best? Did we do it with excellence? But were we obedient to the Lord? And that's where our success comes from. But it is easy. It's simple to just...
Confidence and arrogance are two different things.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally okay to be confident.
Right.
In like your
Totally
musical ability on the worship team, because I think a lack of confidence is hindering your talent ultimately.
Right.
I mean, there's been so many singers where like they sound good, they're just not confident, and you're not confident. Now you're struggling to follow the track because you're not confident. And then obviously arrogance is a totally different thing.
Right.
And I think that like people feel weird to feel confident, in like the church atmosphere. I'm very pro-confident in the church atmosphere. It's like, I want you to be, the more confident you are, the more comfortable you are.
Right.
Which is why I go on and on about preparation, super pro preparation, because it's like the more prepared you are, the less you have to think about the finer details, and you can worship more.
Right.
That's what's like, my biggest tip to like new worship musicians or like singers outside of like obviously your walk with Jesus, listening to worship music, how I said earlier, is like, do you know how to learn a song? Like, can you identify the verse? Do you even know what the verse is?
Mm-hmm.
What's the chord? What's the bridge of the song?
Right.
And like, if you really prepare and know how to identify the roadmap of a song, you don't need the track at that point.
Right.
But it's like, you know, if you're like, yeah, I'll listen to it on Wednesday, and then you come in, you miss the bridge, or you know, maybe it's an interlude and it's like just a band break.
Yep.
I don't question their ability. Like, what's your preparation look like? Maybe you just need to be taught how to learn a song. How do you learn a song?
Right.
So it's like if someone's like, we're going to play this new song Sunday. How do you learn it on the drums? Well, I listen to that thing until I don't want to play it.
Right.
And then I'll watch the drum cover videos on YouTube. And it's like, okay, what is the drummer playing on the verse? What is he playing on the chorus? What's he doing during the turnaround or the instrument or the bridge? And when you break it down like that,
right,
I think that's how you can get the best preparation. And in that, I'm confident in my ability to play the song. I'm not thinking about nothing but worshiping. I can literally close my eyes, play it, and worship because I know when the verse is coming, when the chorus is coming, and when the bridge is coming.
Right. Right. And if you're not prepared for that, then you're right. You're second guessing. And when there's tension, you don't, I hate to use the word perform, but that's what it is. You don't perform well. You don't. And the way that I've always led, and this is probably why I tend not to like a guide, is because the way the song is structured, I may look at the song differently and be like, I want to play that part, another progression through, another round through before we go into it, or I want to go into it quicker than what it says. And so, but fortunately, I've been, I've had the experience to where I'm leading the people. So, so when we go into it, I might be talking beforehand. Of course, I don't like to talk very much. Yeah. I'm one of those guys that's like, only talk when you need to.
Yeah.
Especially like on transitions. Like if you feel like the Lord wants you to say something, then by all means, say it. But if you're talking for a transition just to make a transition, I'm like, don't.
That's
do
a fun topic.
Do it musically and don't be awkward. Because you're sometimes you can break up the flow of worship. Yeah, you can. You
ain't up there to preach, brother.
Exactly.
You're up there to lead.
Exactly. Worship. Let the preacher preach and lead in worship. Exactly.
Now I do love. There's some instance where I love like, it's just a middle ground. Like, I love there to be space. Like this is what I say. Like instrumentals are in there for a reason. I'm really big on like some people may be like instrumentals, like it's worship, like this is just that's a guitar solo, it's a rock concert. But if you think about it, like an instrumental in a song, like that's like giving us a chance to kind of worship, because we don't get to sing, we're not singing. So if there's like an instrumental breaking a song, that's just like Andrew and I, we're using the guitar and the drums. This is like we're using it to worship during this instrumental,
right? And
it's like it gives the song a space to breathe.
Right.
We're not singing for 5 minutes straight.
Right.
Exactly. And so like I'm not against instrumentals, but I really try to teach like the development people like spontaneous ad-libbing in those moments.
Right.
Because like if you go really long, a long measure of not saying anything, it's kind of like, where are we at? This is kind of awkward. But that's just, again, that's listening to worship music.
Right.
Getting it into your system.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not telling you to copycat what this person on this Bethel song is saying in their instrumental, but like, what are you feeling there? Right. And like, I kind of got into a thing where like, we'll do it. Like, let's say we plan to do a song and I'll try to look up the meaning of that song, like on a website or something. And then I'll shoot it to the person leading it. I'm like, hey, read this, see how you feel about it. And like, as we're going into that song, maybe reference that scripture.
right.
that backs that song. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely wouldn't just ramble on and on.
Yeah.
To do. But and I'm noticing too, like the whole lack of preparation could go back around to a pro of the click track, to where if they're not prepared or if they're nervous or if they're second guessing, that track gives them
Right.
that ability. But I can also, the more we talk, I can see like how you may want to do 2 intros before you do the verse,
Right.
but you're making that decision in the moment. Whereas me, I have the same train of thought as you.
Mm-hmm.
I just do it. I just edit it on the track beforehand.
Right.
Like, hey, Michael, let's do 2 intros here.
Yeah.
You know, give it some time to worship, so we'll put it in. Or I'm like, there's way too many turnarounds here. Let's take it from
Right.
8 to 4. You know, so the only difference is I'm making that call ahead of time because I've listened to it. We played it in rehearsal. I'm like, I feel like if we made this tweak, it'd feel a little bit more kind of like us, and you're doing it in the moment. Really, that's really the only difference.
Probably where a lot of mine comes from too is when we were traveling, and it was just me on the guitar.
Yeah.
Of course, she may play the cajon at times, but a lot of times it was just guitar, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want because it doesn't matter if you mess up, if you hit the wrong key or the wrong chord or whatever, and you correct it and do it again the next time and the next time. It's like, as long as it flows together, like if I'm in G and I'm supposed to play in like a G C D and I do a G D C, well, if I do it again and again and again, it's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So you correct it on the fly, and so when you get used to doing that, then it's like your mess ups aren't really mess ups, but you're using them to go into something different. And then when I start to lead a team again, I'm like, I can't do that because I've got to be on where everybody else is going to be on. So I've started like just looking at on song. I use it and it's got the chords on there. So there's a lot of times where sometimes your ear can't really hear the difference between, at least mine can't, between, like, if I'll use G for example, if we're in the key of G and we play an A minor rather than an E minor, sometimes you can't really pick it up on the acoustic guitar. But when you add the piano with it and you add the bass to it, now I can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Like, so I've practiced with doing the 1, the 6, the 5, the 4, but I need to do the 1, the 2, the 5, the 4. Like, now I'm wrong. So it's like, so when you're leading with one instrument, like just the guitar, it gives me all that freedom. And so I've been used to that. I've been used to that freedom and being used to be able to look and see where the people are at. What do I need to do based on where they are? Or if my eyes are closed, just kind of what I'm feeling in the moment and moving according to either what I see or what I feel. To where, like, as for me, it's like I feel hindered by a track, but I know where others are coming from. It's like, we're doing this track based upon how we've created it. Yeah. So I don't think there's a right or wrong really, as long as it's done.
I'll chop it up midweek. I mean, if I know what we're gonna do, I'll get on my phone because we have playback. I'll throw the songs on my phone and just kind of like mess around with some things, chop up some transitions, see if I like it, shoot it to James and Michael, like, hey, this is the transition we're gonna do. So I'm just really preparing during the week again, just because I like it. I'm just sitting on my couch, like, I'm gonna mess with the set list this week. I just enjoy it,
Yeah.
And I really had something I was gonna say, and then I said that and I lost it. It was really good.
Hopefully, it'll come back to you. But yeah, for, like, say with leading just with one instrument, I think that kind of steered me in the direction that I've went, and that's why I think that's just my background is probably why I lead the way that I lead, because I'm not anti-track. I am kind of anti-backing track.
Like
it's a preference thing. It's not that there's a right or wrong in it, but
I think I legitimately wouldn't use. I don't think I would use if I had the people.
Right.
Because like a couple weeks ago we did Nothing Else, and like we had Frank playing that week on acoustic, Michael on the keys is like having 3 other instruments because he's a legend.
Yeah.
And Judah was on the bass and I was on the drums, and we planned during the week to do nothing else. So I was like, hey, we're just gonna have a click. We're not gonna have a track. Sent them a YouTube video of kind of a bass roadmap. But it was fun because I have an MD mic in the drum cage, so I just fired off the click. It's on a loop. There's not gonna be the guy talking. It's kind of just me, honestly. And you can be like, hey, let's do that intro again.
Right.
Or Michaela will sing she did nothing else. Do the verse. Halfway through that verse, I can feel, hey, go back to that verse. Let's do that again.
Yeah.
Like, that's fun to do.
Right.
You can't do that with the track.
Yeah.
But it's like, I
think
have the
that would
purpose.
be one of the disadvantages that we were talking about earlier. Is that right there? That
you're gonna have to do it how it's.
Yeah.
it's done.
Now, if you have if you're a big enough church and you have an MD that is not on anything else, they're speaking to you what they're hearing, what they're feeling, whatever. And I can see where maybe if somebody's good enough to program that on the fly, but
that's too much going on.
Yeah,
too much can mess up.
I think so.
Too much.
I think so.
Again, it's distracting. At what point you're just not really focusing on worship? And it's like I don't care to use the MD mic, but for me as a drummer, all 4 of my limbs are moving.
Right.
And I gotta take the left foot off the hi-hat, click the mic, talk in the mic, click it back while staying on the tempo and playing my part. So it's like I don't care to use it. I don't prefer it just because I want everyone to be prepared. That way I don't have to use it.
Right.
And I can really just be in the moment.
I've often wondered how you turn the click on or off, or in the middle of a song if something goes off from the click. And now
recently I can easily tell
it's
you
like how do you get that thing to turn off?
So if we're playing a song, we're playing Boom, it happened a couple weeks ago. We either came in too early on an interlude, or it's always like one click too early or too soon. So because the guy's gonna be like chorus 2, 3, 4, but if the vocal is hitting that chorus on the 4 instead of the 1, I'm like, okay, now we're off 1 beat from the instruments in the track. I basically just I cut it real quick. So if I'm playing, I'm like, oh, we're off. Boom! I just hit the space bar real quick, and it cuts the track, and now it's just the live instruments.
Okay, well, that's. I didn't know if you had like a drum pad over there or something that you have like a stop button on or something where you just hit it with your stick on beat, or if you had to, click something or on an iPad or something. There's like that makes it easier. At least you can maybe get it on beat or something and stay on time.
It's fun because it's like one of the hardest things. It's like a game. I almost would like make this a training class. Like, all right, we're gonna purposefully get off the click track, try to get back on. It's hard, man.
Yeah,
because like when the singer is singing it and the band's following the singer, it's so hard to tone the singer out and get back with the track.
Right.
It's like a fun challenge sometimes. So sometimes if we do get off, I will give it maybe 10 seconds to see if we can figure it out. But if not, I'm like, there's too much going on. I'm going to just cut this thing.
Right.
And as a musician, you think, oh my gosh, that was so awkward. That's such a difference in energy. But then like some of the congregation, they have no clue what just happened.
Right.
They're not paying attention to that.
Right.
So it's usually never as bad as you think.
Yeah.
Until like your musician friend is not playing that week and they're out there.
Like, hey, what
and
happened?
Like, hey,
up
was
there?
that bad? You're like, yeah, I mean, I knew what was like the other week it happened and Judah wasn't playing. And I was like, could you tell? And he's like, I mean, I could tell, but most people probably don't know that happened. And I'm like, it feels so awkward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can also see where, for me, a click it's weird, especially if we're playing a different time, but the click doesn't really it just gives us the timing, not like the timing signature. You know what I mean? So it's just like a click, click, click. And
the track is where he brings in the 2, 3, 4 counts and stuff like that.
So there's times when we'll be doing something like, and probably the worst one, like gratitude. And so I'll start the song off and I'm in a different timing, different signature. I know, because there's no drums in the beginning of it. And I look over and Andrew just over there smiling because he knows that we're not going to get the right timing until we go into the chorus.
Yeah, and then the drummer will lock it in.
Yeah, and then the drummer comes in. And so times like that, I'm just like, okay, probably a guide and a click on those times when there's no drummer, it's probably really useful.
Just the click. You don't even need the guide. And I'm like learning in the moment. I'm like, okay, that actually is why I would prefer the click, because I don't like to, it's like, don't play something just to play something, right? Because so in the intro or a verse of a song, if it's just a really nice piano melody and a singer, I don't want to be back there ting, 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 keeping the time.
Right.
It's like, I'm not supposed to be making noise here. I don't want to make noise. So I like to have the click track. Now I don't have to keep the time on the ride. Y'all can have the time, and I can come in when I'm supposed to come in, and I'm not just pinging on the cymbal the whole song. That's just a personal thing.
The other week we were doing Blow Mighty Breath, and I was stuck in my head on another time, and then, so I started singing it. Fortunately, it wasn't the whole band coming in, so I'm playing it, and I know that I'm going way too long. I'm like, it's okay. I'm just going to flow with what I'm doing, and we'll lock it in when we get to the next part.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of looking over to other people, and they're like looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just flow with me.
Yeah.
Just flow." And it ended up being really good because the first time we done it, I done it on purpose. I'm like, I want it to last longer than it's lasting. I want to hold out that blow longer than what we've heard, and I want to hold out breath of God longer, and I want to just make it slower, but not slow. I want to make it longer, not slower.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't. The timing just wasn't right.
You can't sneak that past us drummers.
Exactly.
Because sometimes I'll come in and James will have like changed the BPM by like 1 or 2, and he didn't say anything. And we'll be playing. I'm like, this is not the right speed.
Yeah.
1 number makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
It really does.
And so when we got to the point of the next part of the song, when like streams of mercy, I locked it in at that point.
Yeah.
With the guitar, and of course the drummer kicked in, and then we were locked in. But before that, really, it was a mess up. I messed up on holding out too long, and I'm like, oh, so we're just gonna do it on. It's probably like 4/4 is what I was stuck on. Mm-hmm. I'm not big in the time signatures. I don't really know what they are. I know what I hear, and I know how to play it. But to tell you what we're doing, I don't really know. So I'll look over at Andrew. I'll look over at Michael. I'll look at Caleb or Arian. And usually Arian just smiles at me. He's like, and Caleb's doing the same thing now. He's like, hey, just do what you're going to do. We'll kick in and follow you here in a second. But that comes with with relationship and with preparation and practice too. Because if you know that, hey, I'm probably going to mess up the first part of this song, then Caleb's just sitting there like you, not playing, and then the drums kick in and correct.
Yeah,
It makes everything correct.
Just get us to the second
but
verse.
You don't know that it's not correct from the beginning of the song. It's like sometimes there's that change, and depending on how you look at it, if you're using a click, that could correct it from the very beginning,
right?
Or if I want it to be that difference or whatever, and have that element, it sounds like it would be wrong. It sounds like, but when you go back and listen to it online, it sounded pretty good. It's like, what did they do? Something's different there. It didn't sound bad, but if we had a click in there, we'd be like, oh man, where are we at? We're all lost. Yeah, because I wouldn't have been with it. So I think there's those give and takes there too.
We have those moments where like worship team come back up, like at the end, we'll do a song, but we're not like doing the whole tracked song. So like whenever he stops talking, we'll go into it, and it's like sometimes when we go into it, I'm like, oh, we are pretty slow right now. This should be a lot faster, and you just kind of keep the time on the ride, try to speed it up a little bit, and bring in that kick a little bit, and so I mean, not having a click, it is what it is. I mean. And the negative to using a click track is if you do mess up or get off, it could be a train wreck.
Right.
Because the perfect musicians in the track, they ain't messing up. So you're trying to get back on their same
Right.
page, and it's just almost impossible
Right.
at that point.
Because I like to follow the drums, let the drums be.
Yeah.
The drums are my click. Even like when I would do like recording, if you're not on timing, if you're recording, say if I'm just going to record just acoustic guitar or piano, I can't just sit down and record it. I've got to be on something. So when I start putting those together, it's together. Because like you said, one BPM could just train wreck the whole thing. So I started listening to a click just here in the studio. I'm like, I hate that click. It's just, I just don't. So what I done is I just went to the keyboard and just put in a drum beat and just let that drum beat be my click.
Yeah.
And that was cool. I could use that. But for whatever reason, just the click just, it seemed like all of them are like blocks of wood. I can't find one that is like a drum, and
apparently James said there's like these, you can get this like wristband almost, and it's like a pulse.
Huh.
I'm like, oh man, that's fancy.
Yeah.
We should try that. On the playback thing that we use on the computer, there's actually like 12 different click tones.
Oh
and
yeah.
I went through them I went through them one week and like found one that wasn't as bad. And I was like, I'm going to try this for like when the team comes back on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And like I started playing it, and I don't think they liked it better. It definitely was not as shrill though.
Yeah.
But it was almost too quiet to where like once everyone got up to full volume, you almost couldn't hear it at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone inventive out there should try to invent a different click noise.
Yeah.
That's like just
Like,
smooth.
for me, give me a bass drum. Give me a bass drum
yeah,
as a
that'd be
click.
it.
And that keeps me, because that's actually what, like, I'll look over at Arian at times or at Caleb. I'm like, hey, just give me a bass drum, keep me on time.
Yeah.
And because they're not playing anything else, but they're not doing like every single beat like a click is, but they might just be playing the one.
Yeah, for sure.
And then come back on the one again or whatever. And so for me, that helps me, and that kind of sets the time for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that drummer is keeping the time. But I think our methods, everybody's methods are different, and who's to say that one's right or wrong if it's working?
I think that you should be adaptable and be able to play in all the methods.
Right.
Just like when I've played with you, Open Heaven or whatever the case is. Yeah, I may be used to click tracks, but you should be able to be adaptable in a situation where you don't use click tracks.
Right.
And find positives and joy in both of those things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like if I play with y'all, a little bit of freedom, I'm not how I follow track. We can kind of go where we go.
Right.
And then when I have it, it's like a little bit of comfort here. Like, yeah, let's play it this way.
Right.
But I mean, there's been several times where, not even at this church, but everywhere I've played, where like you've had to stop it, or there's been a malfunction and it shuts off, and it's like, if you can't keep going,
right,
that's on you. That goes back to lack of preparation. So again, it's like the click track's not needed; it's just assisted.
Right. Yep. Man, we went like full circle with some of our conversation. I got some notes here, and I don't know if we even hit any of those notes, but I think we had a good conversation. It was just kind of, this is church talk. It's not just click talk or whatever. So even though we said, hey, we're talking about click tracks today, we touched base upon it, but there was so much better conversation than just on clicks. And we should get together more often and do some of these. Maybe
Absolutely.
Maybe meet at your church or my church, or you can come back out. It doesn't matter to me. But
send me a topic and I can talk about it.
We'll do it. We'll do it. Maybe we'll get a panel of people together. We'll get you and maybe Andrew or Mike, if Michael will be on.
Come on, Michael.
Or Judah. Judah's like, he doesn't say a whole lot.
Michael and Judah don't say a whole lot, but they have their opinions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
They have their opinions. That'll just lay it back in the background.
And if you don't know, Michael and Judah are my sons, two more of my sons. Well, I have three boys, Andrew, Michael, and Judah. So who he was talking about, that's my boys. Yeah. So but yeah, we'll definitely do this again. Maybe next time we'll make you some food or something.
Ooh.
Today it was like we didn't. I know you got a time frame. You're like, hey, I got to be out here by this time, and so maybe next time we'll
yeah, it was great.
We'll get some food or something.
It's flown by. Like I said, I love talking about it. I love the channel. I love what you guys represent, just because like y'all are just consistent in your beliefs. You know what I'm saying? And so even if it might be a little bit different, there's respect there of I respect y'all as musicians, and we can sit here and talk about different opinions.
Right.
And it's fun.
Right. And neither one's, like I said, neither one's right or wrong. It's just like we might do things one way, another person does it the other way, but both of us are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like we are glorifying the Lord. And I love how when we stepped in at Kings River, like, you know, because I stepped in and just started playing acoustic at times to help out. It's like, man, this clique is so weird. This God is weird. I don't like it. Yeah. But, you know, it's not like, hey, you got to change because I don't like it. You know, we, like you said, we just flow with each other. And at times when I would lead a song, it's like, click off when we're following, you know, you lead the way you lead. But then if you're not leading, we lead the way we lead, and we do it together. Like, if we could do that as churches, wouldn't it be so cool? It was like, yeah, you guys lead the way you lead, preach the way you preach, and we're going to do things together at times. And hey, if you shout while you preach, and you sit down and talk to us while you teach, and if we can all come together and do the same thing together, wouldn't that be so great? And do things as the kingdom, and not as like
there's 12 churches on the same block.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's a little extreme.
And two of them are the same thing. You got like the First Baptist and the Second Baptist. And it's like, were you here first? Is that why you're called the first? And I'm picking on Baptists. I'm you know, the only reason I say Baptist is because that's usually the one that has the first and second in their names. And I don't know why that is. Maybe if you're a Baptist pastor, you can tell me why is it there's like a first and a second, and what's behind that? Because I don't know. I don't know. If comment and tell me what's with those names. So, guys, thank you all for watching Church Talk. If you've gotten any value out of this, make sure you click the like and subscribe, and tell us what your channel is again. Go check out Jacob's channel. It's JDH.
Yeah, JDH drumming. I basically try to cover all the worship songs that people are doing today, just to give drummers a resource to like see how the song is played. So
if you're a worship pastor, or if you know a drummer, turn them on to Jacob's channel, to where maybe they can gain some insight and some knowledge there. Because I'm all about sharing. I've got some videos coming up as well about maybe by the time you've seen this, maybe they've already been out there, but just about leading worship from the acoustic. And my experience is leading worship from only the acoustic. So I'm all about sharing experiences and helping each other grow. Not that, you know, either one of us think that we've arrived, because there's so much more learning that I know that I have to do. But there's a lot of experience there too that maybe it can help somebody else.
There's your next panel. You talk about how you do it from acoustic. Michael talks about how he does it from the piano, guitar, and drums. There's your panel.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll plan it sometime when we can all be here, and like I said, we'll have some food. We'll have your family out as well. I'm sure Jennifer would love to see the baby. So, but guys, thank you all for watching Church Talk, and we'll see you guys next time. God bless y'all.